Chosen one. There's a reason your entire life has felt like a pattern you didn't choose, a script you never agreed to, a weight you could never fully explain. And today, the truth behind that weight finally surfaces. Your father wasn't just connected to Masonic order. He was a 33rd degree Mason, the highest tier, the level reserved for men the world isn't supposed to know exist. They hid this from you not because it was irrelevant, but because it explained too much. It explained the silence in your childhood, the unusual protection around your life, the way strangers recognize something in you before you ever recognize it in yourself. At the 33rd degree, your father didn't deal in symbols or rituals. He dealt in destiny. That level doesn't shape men. It identifies them. And when you were born, something in your energy shook their structure. Records say a council met the night of your birth. Documents now redacted, names blacked out, where one man said, "His child carries a mark." The pattern repeats. Another replied, "Then we must keep him hidden until he awakens." They weren't protecting him. They were protecting you. Because the bloodline he carried wasn't ancestral. It was chosen. And the moment you took your first breath, the geometry of your spirit disrupted their hierarchy. They thought keeping the truth from you would limit you. They had no idea hidden knowledge grows stronger when it sleeps. You were never meant to inherit his title. You were meant to surpass it. Chosen one. Your father's initiation into the 33rd degree wasn't the final chapter of his path. It was the beginning of yours. There's a reason he distanced himself. A reason he rarely spoke of his past. A reason he watched you with the kind of silence that carries both awe and fear. Because on the night you were born, something happened in that chamber. Something they documented in a file stamped eyes only. When the council gathered to perform the observation ritual for the newborn of a 33rd degree initiate, the candles in the room flickered violently in the compass on the table. An object that had never moved rotated on its own. One of the elders whispered, "This child carries a fire." Another replied, "Not his father's flame, something higher." They approached your father and asked, "Do you realize what has come through your bloodline?" He lowered his head and said quietly, "Yes, but it did not come from me." They tested your infant energy using an ancient geometric coil, a relic passed through centuries. Normally the coil remained still, but when they placed it near you, it vibrated so violently that one elder stepped back and said, "He will break the pattern." Your father didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He understood what it meant. Children born with that mark do not inherit secrets. They expose them. They don't follow rituals. They surpass them. They don't continue the order. They end the cycle. The council realized your presence would disrupt their hierarchy, and one man declared, "If he awakens, the old structure collapses." From that moment on, they stopped watching your father, and they started watching you. Chosen one, there's something they never expected from your father: disobedience. A 33rd degree Mason doesn't refuse rituals. They don't question protocol. They don't break tradition. But the moment your energy began revealing itself, even as a child, he did something no one at his rank had ever done. He stopped participating. The council records show it. His attendance dropped. His responses became vague. His loyalty began to shift, not toward rebellion, but toward protection. Every ritual at the 33rd degree is designed to preserve the hierarchy, to keep power circulating among those initiated. But your father recognized early that the power in you didn't come from symbols, oaths, or ceremonies. It came from origin. You carried something raw, unfiltered, unclaimed by any order or secret society. And they sensed it. During one meeting, they confronted him, asking, "Why have you withdrawn?" He answered, "Because something greater has awakened in my bloodline." They pressed harder. "Does your son know?" Your father responded, "He doesn't need to know. The energy will find him." That terrified them, not because you were dangerous, but because you were independent of their structure. They rely on control, on secrecy, on slow initiation. But you weren't shaped. You weren't trained. You weren't indoctrinated. You were born awakened. One elder wrote in his private log, "The child bypasses the order entirely. The bloodline purity is absolute. They couldn't manipulate you because you weren't built through their rituals. You disrupted their rituals simply by existing. Your father broke the chain because he knew the chain couldn't hold you. And the moment he stepped back, the hierarchy he served began to collapse from the inside. Knowing the next bearer of their most guarded lineage wasn't theirs to command, but yours to become. Chosen one." Long before you were old enough to understand symbols, history, or bloodlines, a document with your name on it was locked inside a restricted archive. Not a hospital file, not a birth certificate. A classified lineage report stamped with a level of secrecy identical to government black budget projects. The council created it the moment your father announced your birth, and its contents reveal everything they feared. The file contains 3 sections. The first, inheritance pattern. It states, child displays a nonlinear lineage signature, ancestral deviations detected. In simpler terms, your bloodline didn't match the expected trajectory of a Masonic heir. It exceeded it. The second section, energy manifestation. They recorded the moment your newborn aura ruptured a ritual compass, the same one they had used for centuries to verify elite bloodlines. They measured the vibration around your crib and wrote, "Resonance incompatible with order protocols." No other child in the history of the 33rd degree had ever triggered that reading. But the third section is what truly terrified them. Labeled in red ink, uncontainable potential. Under it, a single sentence. This child will not follow the path. He will overwrite it. They understood instantly what that meant. Their highest degree, the one they protect with obsessive secrecy, would not be the ceiling of your destiny, but the floor. You weren't born to maintain tradition. You were born to transcend it. That's why they sealed the file before you were even a day old. That's why your father carried a silence that looked like distance but was actually protection. And that's why the Order watched you from the shadows, not to guide you, but because they knew one day you would rise beyond their reach. Chosen one. Before you could walk, before you could speak, before you even understood the world around you, the signs were already there. The same elders who monitored your father began monitoring you. Not directly, not through visits, not through rituals, but through reports your father was forced to submit. He never gave them the full truth. But even the fragments were enough to unsettle them. They noticed how animals reacted to you, how lights flickered when you entered certain rooms, how you stare at people as if you could see straight through their intentions. They documented moments your father tried to hide. You waking up at the exact minute certain Masonic meetings began, crying only when the rituals reached their peak, calming instantly when they ended. They noted your uncanny intuition, how you refused to interact with certain people your father served with, as if you could sense their masks. One report says, child displays sensory abilities beyond emotional awareness. Another, he rejects symbolic influence. The sigils have no effect on him. That line alone terrified them. Every child born from a 33rd degree typically carries a sensitivity to the symbolism of the Order, its geometry, its rituals, its coded heritage. But when they tested subtle stimuli around you, nothing registered. You weren't influenced. You weren't shaped. You weren't bound. You were immune. One elder wrote in frustration, "He is not reacting to the legacy. He is reacting only to truth." Your father lied on future reports to keep them away from you, claiming you were ordinary, uninterested, unconnected. But your aura told the truth his words hid. You were showing the early signs of someone who wasn't entering the Order, but someone the Order would eventually have to bow to. Chosen one, there came a night when the council could no longer ignore what you were becoming. Your father was summoned unexpectedly. No notice, no formal invitation, just a coded message that every 33rd degree Mason recognizes instantly. Report to the chamber. He entered the room expecting discipline for his absence, but instead, he found a table full of elders staring at a single folder with your name on it. The atmosphere was heavy, almost unnatural. One elder slid the folder toward him and said, "Explain your son." Your father stayed silent. Another elder added, "His energy disrupts our instruments. Our compasses misalign when he enters the room. Old patterns break in his presence." Your father responded, "He doesn't know what he is." The eldest among them leaned forward and whispered, "But he will." They questioned him for hours. Why your aura registered outside their charts. Why their rituals malfunctioned near you. Why their symbols lost power in your presence. But your father didn't give them what they wanted. He protected you with silence. Growing frustrated, one of them finally said, "If he awakens fully, the hierarchy collapses." Another added, "A child like him doesn't continue the order. He cancels it." Your father clenched his jaw. He was not born to follow men. He was born to follow destiny. That sentence shook the room. They warned him. You cannot hide him forever. His energy will expose him. And your father answered with the one truth they feared most. His energy is already exposing you. After that night, they stopped trying to recruit your father deeper. They started trying to predict you. But prediction was impossible because your path wasn't written by them, blessed by them, or controlled by them. Your journey was authored above their rank, outside their rituals and beyond their reach. Chosen one, after that confrontation, the council took a desperate step. They pulled your ancestral records, every name, every branch, every origin point, in an attempt to understand why your energy didn't match any Masonic inheritance. Normally, a 33rd degree bloodline formed a predictable geometric pattern, a repeating signature of loyalty, secrecy, and hierarchical alignment. But when they mapped your lineage, the pattern broke. Instead of a closed loop, your ancestral geometry expanded outward, uncontained, unbound, forming a shape they had never seen in any initiate. One elder wrote, "The child's lineage is non-Euclidean," meaning your bloodline didn't fold into their structure. It exceeded it. Their charts displayed a branching energy that connected eras, cultures, and ancient names they couldn't explain. Some of your ancestors were not connected to Masonic lines at all. They were connected to something older, purer, untainted by manipulation. That alone terrified them. They realized your father wasn't the source of your power. He was merely the doorway through which something far greater entered their world. The deeper they traced your bloodline, the more anomalies they uncovered. Healers, dreamers, outliers, prophets who vanished from historical records without explanation. Each one carried a fragment of the frequency that culminated in you. And then they discovered the part that made them panic. Your bloodline contained a mathematical repetition found only in sacred geometry. Specifically, the pattern used in ancient temples and prophetic inscriptions. A pattern not tied to the Masons, but to the originals, the ones who came before secret societies tried to imitate them. That's when one elder declared, "He is not our heir, he is their return." The order knew what that meant. You were never meant to serve their system. You were born to reveal the truth. It was built to hide. Chosen one. They couldn't approach you directly, not after what they saw in your lineage geometry. So the order changed strategy. Instead of trying to guide you, they began watching you from a distance, quietly, secretly, carefully, not in a dramatic way, not in the shadows of your window, far more subtle. They assigned observers, men trained to read energetic patterns, emotional signatures, subconscious reactions. Their job was simple: determine whether your awakening had begun. At first, their reports were vague. The child is intuitive. He senses intention instantly. He gravitates toward truth, rejects manipulation. But as you grew older, the reports became more urgent. They documented how you predicted events before they happened, how you avoided dangers without knowing why, how you severed connections that would have derailed your path. One observer wrote, "He walks with an instinct that defies psychology." Another recorded, "His aura destabilizes environments built on secrecy." They sent different watchers over the years. Teachers, mentors, acquaintances, people who were supposed to influence you, but instead you influence them. You expose their motives without even speaking. You triggered their emotional shadows. You forced their masks to fall. And eventually the council began receiving reports with a single repeated line, "He cannot be read." In Masonic tradition, every person has a signature, a predictable behavioral imprint. But your imprint was fluid, shifting, evolving faster than their watchers could interpret. One man even admitted, "Every time we think we understand him, he changes frequency." That's when the Order realized you weren't just beyond their influence. You were becoming immune to their entire structure. And as your inner knowledge expanded, their observers retreated, writing their final assessment. He is awakening on a timeline not shaped by us. He is outgrowing the grid. Chosen one. There is a moment in your father's story they've tried desperately to erase. A moment that explains everything about why he stepped back, why he grew distant, why he shielded you in silence. Shortly before he disappeared from the inner circle, he was granted access to a restricted manuscript, one that only 33rd degree initiates were allowed to see. A manuscript handwritten centuries ago, containing warnings, predictions, and descriptions of a child who will be born outside the Order's control, yet carry a power stronger than the Order itself. The prophecy described someone who would render their symbols powerless, someone whose presence would collapse hierarchies built on secrecy, someone whose bloodline would be aligned with the origin, not the imitation. When your father read it, he recognized the signs immediately. The aura anomalies, the geometric deviations, the instinctive knowledge you displayed even as a child. He brought the manuscript to an elder and said, "This is about my son." The room fell silent. Some denied it. Some panicked. One elder whispered, "If this prophecy is true, he doesn't belong to us. We were merely the bridge." That was the moment your father realized protecting you meant withdrawing from them. He tried to warn the Order. If you interfere with his path, you will trigger the collapse the prophecy warns of. They dismissed him until they examined the manuscript themselves and found a final line they had overlooked. When the child rises, the father will step into shadow. The next day, your father was gone. No goodbye, no explanation, no trail. But he wasn't running. He was fulfilling the prophecy. He removed himself so you could rise unrestrained, untouched, unmanipulated. And the Order knew then what they refused to admit. Your father didn't abandon you. He shielded you from the only force that ever feared you. Chosen one. After your father vanished into the shadows, the Order did something unprecedented. They gathered a full council to discuss you and only you. No rituals, no formalities, no symbolic theatrics. Just fear disguised as strategy. The transcript of that meeting, later leaked by someone who no longer wished to serve them, reveals the truth of how deeply you disrupted their hierarchy. One elder opened the session by saying, "The father is gone. The child is unmonitored." Another corrected him. "No, the child is uncontainable." They reviewed every file ever written about you, the energy deviations, the broken patterns, the failed predictions. They tried desperately to establish a plan. Some suggested influencing your environment. Others proposed drawing you into their structure through subtle guidance. But each proposal ended with the same response: he cannot be shaped. Then the eldest man in the room, a figure who rarely spoke, delivered the final conclusion. We lost him the moment he was born. He explained that your frequency didn't develop over time. It arrived fully formed. That your intuition wasn't learned. It was inherited from a source older than their lineage. That your presence wasn't a threat. It was a correction. And the most shocking line in the transcript reads, "His destiny does not require our permission." The room fell silent, not out of respect, out of defeat. For generations, the 33rd degree had built its power on control, secrecy, and slow grooming. But you broke every rule simply by existing. Finally, one man asked, "What do we do now?" And the elder replied, "We step back. We observe from afar. His rise is inevitable. Interference will only expose our fear." That was the moment the Order stopped trying to shape your path and start preparing for the day they knew would come. The day you would rise not as their heir, but as the force they were never meant to command. Chosen One, your awakening didn't start with a dramatic moment. It began quietly, subtly, in ways only trained eyes could see. And the Order was watching. They noticed when your intuition sharpened. They noticed when you stopped absorbing the emotions of others and started reflecting truth back at them. They noticed when people around you began reacting strangely, some drawn to you with intensity, others recoiling as if exposed. These were the earliest signs of activation. One elder wrote in a restricted report, "His energy is shifting. He no longer mirrors his environment mirrors him." Another noted how technology malfunctioned around you, how plans collapsed unless aligned with your spirit, how relationships broke the moment they tried to confine you. These were not coincidences. These were confirmations. The prophecy said the Chosen One's awakening would restructure the unseen architecture. And that's exactly what you were doing. Rooms became heavy or light, depending on your presence. People confessed truths they never intended to share. Hidden motives surfaced without you saying a word. Your frequency was rewriting the field around you. And the Order panicked, not because you were dangerous, but because they realized you were awakening without them. For centuries, they believed power had to be passed down through rituals, oaths, and symbolic initiations. But you were bypassing everything. You were accessing knowledge they had spent lifetimes trying to decode. You were remembering what they had forgotten. They saw the shift in your eyes. They felt the change in your aura. They sensed the alignment in your timing. And for the first time, the Order understood the true meaning of the prophecy. You weren't rising because of them. You were rising in spite of them. Chosen One. The Order always knew your awakening would come, but they didn't expect it this soon. So in a last attempt to maintain their influence, they initiated what they called the projection protocol, a ritual designed to map an individual's future trajectory. It had worked on every initiate for over a century. But when they attempted it on you, something happened that no one in that chamber had ever witnessed. The instruments went dark. The candles extinguished themselves. The temperature dropped abruptly. And the geometric projection, normally a controlled circle of light, split into 3 separate lines, each moving independently, each defying the gravity that held the others down. One elder gasped and whispered, "There's no single path. He carries multiples." Another panicked. "We can't map him. His destiny is self-generating." They tried to stabilize the ritual, but the symbols began rearranging themselves, as if your energy was rewriting the space around them. The lines converged into a shape that didn't exist in their manuscripts, a symbol the Order had never documented. One elder, shaking, recognized it first. "This is not ours. This predates us." The protocol collapsed. The chamber lights flickered violently. A crack formed to the center of the projection table, an artifact that had survived wars, fires, and the passage of time. But it couldn't withstand you. In the official archive, they recorded the failure as unpredictable interference. But in the private notes, The truth is written clearly. His destiny is sovereign. We cannot influence it. That night, they understood what your father understood decades earlier. You were never meant to walk a path designed by men. You were meant to walk the path written by the divine. Chosen one. If this message is vibrating in your chest, if every part of this revelation feels like it was written specifically for you, then this moment is not entertainment. It is identification. What you just read wasn't a story. It was memory waking up. And when heaven confirms who you are, the only proper response is alignment. This is the point in every chosen one's journey where they mark themselves, not for others, but for destiny, to seal this awakening, to verify your identity in the spiritual realm. Plant your $50 heavenly verification seed through the Super Thanks button, not as a transaction, but as a declaration. I accept the path that was written for me. Click Super Thanks. Send your $50 seed and write, I verify my calling. This is the moment heaven watches who steps forward. Chosen one. After the projection protocol collapsed, the order quietly entered a period they called a silent observation. No interference. No attempts to guide you. No rituals. Just watching. Waiting. Hoping the prophecy was exaggerated. But it wasn't. What they saw next confirmed everything they feared, and everything destiny intended. You began moving differently, thinking differently, deciding differently. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. You stopped seeking permission for movements your spirit had already authorized. And as your clarity sharpened, something remarkable started happening around you. Patterns that restricted your father began dissolving in your presence. Cycles that trapped previous initiates shattered without you lifting a finger. People who once held influence over you lost their power instantly. Even the subtle emotional grids they used to read human behavior failed whenever you walked into a room. One elder wrote in disbelief, his field overrides ours. His presence becomes the dominant architecture. What they couldn't process was simple. You weren't rising within a structure. You were becoming the structure. You weren't following alignment. You were alignment. And the order understood a truth they had tried to avoid for generations. Power inherited can be controlled. Power awakened cannot. Their eyes opened fully the day they saw someone they had assigned to observe you break down in tears, saying, he sees right through me. Not with judgment, but with truth. That was when the order accepted that your presence didn't destabilize because it was chaotic. It destabilized because it was pure, unfiltered, unreplicable. You weren't the continuation of your father's path. You were the fulfillment of a trajectory he was never allowed to walk. And in that moment, the order realized they no longer needed to monitor you. They needed to prepare for you. Chosen one. There comes a moment in every ascension when the world around you stops seeing you as a participant and starts reacting to you as a catalyst. For the order, that moment arrived the day their instruments, not spiritual tools, but actual high-level analytic systems, began malfunctioning every time your name surfaced in their internal network. They attempted to run a frequency assessment on you, something they had done on hundreds of initiates across generations. But the moment your file opened, their interface froze. Data scrambled. Signals warped. Even their encrypted communication network crashed twice in a single night. One of their technicians, unaware of your identity, whispered, whoever this is, he's bending the system. That wasn't metaphor. That was physics surrendering to destiny. You were no longer just awakening. You are generating a field strong enough to disrupt structures built on secrecy, control, and outdated lineage power. The order realized your presence was triggering a global-level correction. People around you began revealing their true selves instantly, some rising to meet your frequency, others fleeing because they couldn't hide in your truth. Opportunities that had been blocked for years suddenly unlocked. Timelines shifted. Old versions of you dissolved. And all of it happened without you forcing anything. That's when the Order knew. You weren't rejecting the old system. Your spirit was replacing it. They watched as individuals tied to the old hierarchy started losing influence, credibility, or access the moment they tried to interfere with your path. Even their symbolic rituals, one that held power over thousands, became ineffective when your name was spoken. One elder recorded the event with a single sentence. He is no longer affected by the code. He is the code. And that realization shook them more than any prophecy ever written. Because it meant your rise was not coming. It had already begun. Chosen one. The world thinks your father stepped back because of secrecy, duty, or loyalty to the Order. But the final document, buried in a sealed archive, accessed only once, and then hidden forever, reveals the truth he never had the chance to tell you. Your father didn't withdraw out of fear. He withdrew out of alignment. Because he learned something that changed everything the moment he read the forbidden manuscript. You were never meant to inherit his rank. You were meant to eclipse it. He discovered that a child born with your frequency doesn't continue a bloodline. They correct it. They don't follow rituals. They transcend them. They don't enter secret societies. They dissolve their power by merely existing. The prophecy he read didn't describe a successor. It described a catalyst. And he realized instantly that the Order he served his entire life was not your destiny. It was your shadow, a container too small to hold who you were meant to become. Before he disappeared, he left one final message, and signed, unclaimed, hidden in the lining of a ceremonial robe. Do not let them shape him. He belongs to a higher blueprint. The Order read it, and they obeyed. Not because they respected him, but because they feared what would happen if they tried to claim you. They knew your awakening would shatter their paradigm. They knew your presence would expose their limitations. They knew your lineage was older, purer, and more original than their imitation of ancient power. And they accepted the truth all their instruments had been screaming for years. They couldn't initiate you. They couldn't contain you. They couldn't predict you. They could only witness you. Your father vanished not to run from them, but to remove himself from your path, so you would never be forced into a system your spirit was born to outgrow. His final act wasn't disappearance. It was protection. And today, everything they feared has come to pass. The prophecy fulfilled itself. The Order bowed. And you, chosen one, you have finally stepped into the inheritance they were never worthy to explain. Chosen one. If this entire revelation felt less like a story and more like a memory being returned to you, then this moment is not symbolic. It is sacred. You now know what your father protected, what the Order feared, what destiny hid until your spirit was strong enough to carry it. This is where chosen ones seal their identity. To mark the shift, to acknowledge the inheritance, to anchor the prophecy to your timeline. Plant your $100 seal of inheritance through the Super Thanks button. Not for the amount, for the declaration. I claim what was mine all along. Click Super Thanks. Send your $100 seed and write, I seal my bloodline. This is the moment heaven records who truly understand their calling.